All right, first we're going to mark the locations on our elevons where we're going to install carbon slat reinforcement. So I'm going to take this steel ruler, which has got millimeter measurements on it. I'm going to put the back edge of it right up next to where the foam hinges begin. And then the length of the carbon slat I'm going to use is 150 millimeters. So I'm just going to try and get 150 millimeters, centered on the elevon. All right, and then I'm just going to draw a line here from 0 to 150 millimeters with a pencil. That's where I'm going to slot it. Okay, so there's 150 millimeters on that one. And then on the second one here, exact same thing. Get it along the back edge, right where the foam hinges begin. Look at where your 150 millimeter length is to try to center that up. All right, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing on these has to be absolutely perfect. So just going to go over it 2 or 3 times with a pencil so it leaves a good mark so I can see it. All right, so I'm going to continue to use my straight edge here, my steel straight edge, and I'm going to go ahead and cut those slots now. And then we're going to go ahead and put on tape hinges on our elevons. Make sure you have a nice sharp utility blade. And I'm marking the back side of it because the back side is white and easy to see. Okay, so there's one. Yeah, it's all the way through. Nice sharp edge. All right, so now we'll do the other one. Okay, so we've got both those done. Now what I want to do is I want to cut the elevons right where those foam hinges are. I just want to cut the foam hinges off of it. And I want to install tape hinges instead of using these foam hinges, right? So I'm just going to go through here and cut off the foam hinges. Okay, so I've got the foam hinges cut off of that. And now I need to trim this back side of the trailing edge of the wing up a little bit where the little nubs where the foam hinges are there, and just trim those off. Okay. All right. So now we have foam hinges removed from that one. Now for the second one, same thing. I'll start on the trailing edge of the wing this time. Okay. That's done. And now to remove them from the elevon itself. All right. So now just, clean up your edges. Make sure your edges are nice and straight and there's no burrs or anything on them. And then we'll go ahead and install the tape hinges on it. I've got one of the 2mm, the short section of the 2mm solid carbon rod, and I want to use that as a spacer. You want these to be able to travel up and down, and I'll show you how I make my tape hinges when I'm putting this gap in here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get some packing tape. I'm going to get some clear packing tape for the tape hinge. Just standard clear packing tape. All right. That's going to be my tape hinge. Okay, so I've got the one on the bottom. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to remove my carbon spar there now that I've got my gap. And I'm going to go ahead and take my utility blade and I'm going to cut that excess tape off. Okay, got that. Now I'm going to put my tape hinge over the top. Same thing. Okay. Okay, same thing. Just make it a little bit longer than the control surface is wide. Try to center it up. So you've got the same amount on the trailing edge that you have on the elevon itself. Just trim off your excess again. Okay. Okay, so now that we've got our tape hinge on there, all right, the reason that I did it this way, and I'll show you why, I'm going to take one of these rulers, and I'm going to take one of the edges of it, because tape sticks to tape, right? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is force these two pieces of tape together to form a hinge. Okay, so now if you look at that tape hinge, that is good and solid. All right. That's not going to go anywhere. It's going to last for a very, very long time because you've got two layers of tape with the center creating the hinge. Okay, so let's do our second one. All right, so let's get our tape. We've got our 2mm carbon spar as our spacer. Make sure that you've got, okay, so just kind of center it up over the control surface and the trailing edge of the wing. You want your carbon spar, your spacer, basically to go right through the center of your tape. Okay. All right, so we've got that. Now we can go ahead and flip it over. Flip it over, remove our spacer. Grab our utility blade and cut off our excess tape. There's one. There's two. Now we're going to do the same to the top. Get a section wider than our elevon. Try and center it up over the gap. Okay. Smooth it out. Make sure you've got a good bond. And then we're going to flip it over and cut off our excess again. Okay, grab our ruler and push the gaps together so that we make a nice, strong tape hinge. And there you go. There's our second tape hinge, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to last for a very, very long time. We've got our tape hinges done. Now it's time to go ahead and install our carbon spar reinforcement and our elevons. I've got some wax paper underneath it so I don't make a mess, so it doesn't stick to my cutting surface. I'll also put some across the top and then weight it down. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put these into the slots. As you can see, they seat in there just fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeegee some glue over the top of it so it get into the gap. And then I've got a couple of short pieces of packing tape so that I could pull that tight once I get the glue squeegeed down in there on both sides. And then I'm going to let it set up and dry, let the foam cure. All right, so we're just going to put a narrow bead of a foam cure on these grooves here, these cuts where we just put in the carbon slat. We'll go ahead and do both of them at once. Have a piece of scrap foam handy to squeegee this in. You also probably want some paper towel. Okay, so all right, so I've got that squeegeed into the gap. All right, and I'm going to take my two pieces of tape here and I'm going to pull these together and just put a short piece of tape over the top of that to hold that in place, because it'll spread it just ever so slightly. All right, so that's going to hold that in place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another piece of wax paper over the top, and then I'm going to put a book on top of both of these so it will hold them completely flat while the foam cures. So once that's all cured, we'll be back and continue. I thought we'd go ahead and put together our little cage here that's going to serve as our motor mount. So I've got my foam cure here. I've got some wax paper and a rubber band to hold it together once I get it glued. This is going to be the back. You can see the holes for the motor mount. This is going to be our base. Okay. All right, so we've got that. We've got our back part on our base. Now it's time to get each one of the sides on. Okay. All right. So that's on. Now we need to get the other side. All right. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a rubber band around it to hold it together. Okay, so I'm going to put a rubber band around this way. All right. Now we just have to wait for it to set up, and then we'll be able to go ahead and install our motor. Time to install our control horns and the clips that are going to hold our carbon spars. Okay. Double check and make sure you know which slots that those are going to go in. So your vertical stabilizers are going to go in these slots right here. All right. As a matter of fact, just so I don't make a mistake, I'm just going to dry fit them in there right now. So I make sure I don't use one of those slots. All right. There. All right. So now control horns, and I've already got the linkage stops connected to them. Once I get everything set up, I will go ahead and put a little dab of glue on the back side of the nuts on those threads so that the nut doesn't back off. All right, so let's get our glue. And put some on our control horn. These also have clips that go on the back side, so you don't need to use a whole heck of a lot of glue. And we want to make sure that your linkage stops are on the outside of the control horn so that they're in line with the servo arms. Okay, and now we're going to put I'm going to put a clip on the back side of it. Okay, got that. Now the second one. Okay, just a little bit of glue. Yeah, so don't forget, once you put your tape, once you get your tape in the, your tape hinges, make sure that you cut the little slots in them where the holes are for the control horns. I guess it'd help if I got the right clip here. Okay, so our control horns are in. Make sure that they're straight. All right, that looks straight. That one looks straight. Okay, now our little clips, which are going to go in like this. Right. So I'm going to put some glue on the top. Once the glue sets up on the top, I will flip the wings over and put a little dab of glue on the bottom of each edge, to lock it into the slot. So just a little bit of glue, just a little bit. All right. This stuff's kind of stringy, so the glue. Make sure you got some paper towel handy. Okay, so 3 in each wing. All right. That wing's taken care of now. Components, just in case you drop something, you break something. You got a couple of spares just about. Okay, so we've got all of our clips in now. 3 in each wing half. We've got our control horns in. All right, on to the next step. Okay, let's remove our rubber band from our little cage here and get our motor mounted because we're about ready to install our carbon spars in our wing. The screws are M2. It did not come with steel washers, but I recommend them. Well, they don't have to be steel washers. They could be nylon washers. But I would recommend putting washers underneath them so that they don't pull through the wood. So get you some 2.5 millimeter washers. That'll work fine. All right. I've got a little magnet attached to this driver here so that it holds on to the screw. At least I hope it does. All right. So we're going to put the wires for the motor need to come over the top. There's no slot on the bottom to bring the wires through. So I also recommend, I haven't done this yet, but I will before I fly it. I recommend putting some torque seal on these bolts so that they don't come loose in flight, with a little bit of vibration from the motor. That would be my recommendation. So right now I just want to get it all set up, mounted on here so I can finish up the airframe. Then I'll pull out one of these little bolts, one at a time. Using the medium grade will allow you to do that. I'll have links to all this stuff in the show notes. I will try to put links to everything that I use, including the glue, in the show notes, so that if you don't have all the stuff on hand, you'll be able to get it, because you're going to want it. Not only for this project, for other projects, right? Anything that you're going to be building, any kind of DIY project, not just RC stuff, but any kind of DIY project, you're going to want these kind of tools and supplies just to make life easier. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put the carriage through here. You can see I've got the wing, and I've got the 2mm carbon spars just through here, dry fit. Your carriage is going to saddle mount over top of these two here. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. I'll pull both of these out. And better pull out that end so that we can, you don't want to forget to put your motor mount in there before you glue anything in place, right? Okay, and remember, okay, there's one. Let's get the other one in here. It's nice and snug, nice and snug. So there, we got those. So now I'm going to go ahead and feed this all the way across. And then we're gonna get these affixed to the wing first, and then we will worry about centering up our motor mount. Okay, we're gonna worry about that last. The main thing is getting our wing positioned the way it needs to be positioned. Okay, get this back in here. All right. All right, so I'm gonna go get my glue gun. I'll be back, and we'll go ahead and get these tied down. Before we get our hot glue gun going to get our carbon spars in place, affixed in place, I need to get the nose of the aircraft, you know, the angle where it needs to be. So I've got a couple of pieces of tape here. I've made little tabs on the ends of them so that I can peel them off once I'm finished with them. I also have some map pins and one of these little mushroom pieces that are going to go in the front. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to get my little mushroom piece here lined up, and this is the angle right here that you want your two halves to have. So I'm lining them up with this mushroom piece. The mushroom piece is going to be, this is your nose doubler, and it's going to be a little bit further out than the nose, right? And that's the angle that you want. So I'm going to take my map pins. Once I get it lined up here, I'm going to take my map pins and I'm going to affix the nose in place with these map pins. I'm going to put 3 of them in each side so that they don't move, so they maintain my angle. Okay, so there's one side, and then the other side here. All right, that looks good. Now, 3 more on this one. Okay, so now I've got my angle. Now, I'm going to take these pieces of tape. This longest section that goes in the back is 560 millimeters in length. The wingspan, the reported wingspan of this plane is 560 millimeters. Coincidence? I don't think so. Okay, so what we want to make sure of is this last one is right at the edge of the wing plate, right? All right, so I'm going to hold it here with my finger right at the edge, and I'm going to put some tape over the top of it to hold it there. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. I'm going to hold it with my finger right at the very edge, right at the very edge of the wing plate, and put some tape over the top of it to hold it there. All right, now we're ready to heat up our gun. And you'll notice that with the angle that I have on the nose right now, that my other carbon spars are almost perfect in position where they need to be. So now I can just take a dab of glue and go either side of each one of these little clips. All right, our glue gun is now hot, so we can go ahead and put just a little dab of hot glue on either side of our clip to hold our spar in place so it doesn't move in or out. Okay, our hot glue is set up. Now what I want to do is I want to remove the mat pins that I use to hold this in place, and I want to glue the two halves together. It's nose doubler here. All right, so, and we're going to use foam tack for this, and we'll pin them together. And then once that sets up, we'll attach them to our wing. All right, so let me make sure. All right, so use your glue sparingly. It doesn't take a whole lot of glue. All right, I think that's good. Okay, so just get everything positioned. Get it positioned the way you need it. All right, press it down. Make sure that the glue gets nice and level. All right, that looks pretty good. I can see the slots all the way through. So now we'll go ahead and pin it in place. These mat pins really come in handy for a lot of different projects. Okay. Now we just need to wait for that to set up and then we'll attach it to our wing. I've got my doubler positioned underneath the wing plate. I'm getting ready to glue it in. But what I want to do, and don't forget, you need a little bit of a gap here because your main section of your fuselage is going to go all the way up to that apex. All right. So what I'm going to do is I've got everything positioned here. So I need to know where I need to lay the glue. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace around the inside and the outside of the wing plate here. So I know precisely where to put the glue. And then I will also pin it in place and let it set up. Okay. All right, so now I know exactly where I need to put my glue. All right, so I've got my foam cure, foam tack, ready to go. I'm just putting in a very narrow, light bead of glue in place. It doesn't take very much. And you don't want it oozing out everywhere when you press your foam together. All right, so I've got that. Now we want to get it in place. Want to get everything in place here. And then once we get it in place, we'll pin it. All right, it's looking good. It's going to start looking like a plane here really soon. Just going to put a couple of pins in each section. I've got the two halves of my fuselage fitted together, dry fitted together. And you want to make sure if you've got a nice cutting board like I have that's got a grid, vertical, horizontal, so that you can make sure that your just right dress, you know, you're right in the center of one of the vertical lines, and that your notches, you know, for your carbon spars line up on both sides the same way. I've got some strips of packing tape here that I'm going to use to hold it in place on the inside, taping it on the inside because we don't know what kind of angle we're going to need yet, right? All right, so we're going to tape it on the inside. I want to get it to where everything is held together in place. And then, now that I've got that done, I'm going to take and put a strip the full length, and then we'll trim it up. All right. So now we can flip it over and use our utility blade to trim off the excess. All right, there we go. And then we've also got some excess tape right here where these little notches are. So I'm just gonna go around those with the blade. Very, very lightly. So I just scored the tape and not the foam. Okay, now we've got that. So now our halves will be held in place, held together. One of the things I noticed before we put the fuselage in is we need to make sure that the wing plate, the inside of the wing plate is tight against the carbon rod. If it's not, the fuselage just won't seat properly. So I'm going to hold these in place, and I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue over the top of it to hold it in place. Nice. I've just got the fuselage dry fitted into the wing plate. I think that the intention was for the fuselage just to be setting above the wing plate and going over the top of the saddles for the carbon spars. I don't really care for that too much. I would rather have it inside the edge of the wing plate because I think the glue would make it a lot more solid that way. So what I did was I took mine and I cut notches, you know, where the little saddle mounts were, the access port for the servo connectors and stuff. I made those deeper so that it would set down inside the edge of the wing plate rather than on top, because I think that's going to give you a much more solid connection to it, right? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it in place from the bottom, and I'm going to flip it over and make sure everything looks okay from the top. And then I'm going to use the hot glue gun to tack everything in place, and then I'm going to go back over everything with foam cure or foam tack to finish it up. But I think that's going to give it a much more solid connection, to the wing plate. So I am going to go ahead and put some foam tack right here along this edge where that nose doubler is before I flip it over and secure everything with the tacking it with the hot glue. Just because I would like this nose to be as solid as can be, and once you get everything tacked in place with the hot glue, you're not going to be able to get underneath it. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so get this all lined up. Okay, now I think I should be able to flip this over. Make sure that everything looks okay from the top. All right, and then use your hot glue gun to just tack it in place, and then I will flip it over and tack it on the bottom. And I'm tacking it down right, where the wing spars, where the saddle mounts are for the wing spars. Okay. So that's going to hold that in place. Now I'm going to go back over it with the foam tack or foam cure. Okay, so I'm going to put a bead all along where the seam meets, and then I'm going to squeeze it in. Top and bottom, so that we have a nice solid connection. Okay, so there's that side. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and then we'll flip it over and get the top. All right, so I've got glue all along the bottom side, and now I'm going to get the top, the bead of glue, all along the seam here. I'm going to use my scrap foam squeegee to make sure I've got it in the gap. Okay, now I'll get the other side. All right, I want to finish up the fuselage portion here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a bead of foam cure or foam tack right inside that cavity right there. And then I'm going to glue this carbon slat, which I've cut to 410 millimeters in length. And that should make it plenty rigid, side to side, axial and also vertically. So this needs to be a pretty good bead of glue. because we're going to glue the spar in. All right. I think I'm going to have to replenish my glue by the time this project is done. All right. All right, now we're going to lay in our carbon spar. All right. All right, now that we've got that seam all glued, we've got a carbon slat in there. I think everything is going to be nice and rigid. I think everything's going to be nice and secure. I don't think we have to worry about anything with the airframe now. I think we're just about at the point where we can start installing the electronics. So give this time to set up, and then we'll proceed with the next step. Time to get our carriage, our motor mount carriage, all centered up on our carbon spars. And I've measured this, and I've got my hot glue gun that I'm going to use. I measured this at 35 millimeters. 35 millimeters on either side and the front to the edge of the wing plate. So, put a little dab of glue right there. All right, and then make sure that we're at 35 millimeters. And we are. All right. Now a little bit of glue on the other side. Okay. And then we'll measure the back and make sure the back is right dress. It's about 45 and 45. Okay, so it looks good. We're good and centered up. So I'm going to go ahead and put a couple dabs on the back side. You know, I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of dabs on the inside too, just to make sure it is absolutely not going to move, you know. Okay. Last part of the airframe, I believe, is just getting the vertical stabilizers glued in. So I've just got these dry fitted in here. All right, so we're going to glue these in and put a dab of glue underneath both of the servos. I got the servos just dry fitted in there to make sure there wasn't going to be any problem with the fit. And there isn't. It worked. It's going to work great. And then I'll put just a dab of glue on the bottom side too, make sure that the servos aren't going to go anywhere. All right, so let's get our vertical stabilizers in first. And it doesn't take a lot of glue for these vertical stabilizers. Okay. Try to hit the slot so I don't get glue everywhere. All right. That looks good. And then just, visually check it, make sure that they're nice and vertical. If there's no gaps at the bottom, where the glue is. Okay. Okay. Now I just need to put a little dab of glue underneath the servo tabs. Doesn't take much. Okay. Same thing with the other one. and just wipe off the excess. All right, I got the electronics installed. That's the only thing that you missed. I can't record and install the electronics at the same time. My hands just get in the way, but I want to show you where everything is located and how everything is set up. Okay, so I've got the wires for the servos coming through the slots there. I've used the zip ties that came with the kit to tie those off on the middle wing spar. I've got my RadioLink Beam D gyro in the carriage, the motor mount carriage. I've got the ESC attached to Velcro in the front with Velcro that came with the kit. I've got my receiver, which is a RadioLink R8FM receiver, and I've got the cable extension for that tied off on the forward wing spar. The battery I'm going to be using is a Fully Max 2S 660 milliamp hour 30C LiPo. I've got my linkage stops installed, and I'm on the outer hole on the servo arm right now and the outer hole on the control horn right now. So it's ready for its first launch now. We'll go ahead and we'll power it up and I'll show you how everything is working. Okay, so it looks like my all up weight is going to be less than 140 grams with this Fully Max 2S 660 milliamp hour 30C LiPo that weighs around 35 grams. So let's go ahead and connect it up here. I'll show you that everything's moving in the proper direction. Everything is correcting in the proper direction. The motor is spinning in the proper direction. Okay, so it also states in the specifications that you need about 2 to 3 millimeters of positive reflex. So that's what I've got on mine. I've got about 2 millimeters of positive reflex on the elevons. So up elevator, down elevator, left aileron, right aileron. Okay, and we're in fully stabilized mode. So if I tilt the nose down, the elevators come up. If I tilt the nose up, the elevators go down. If I tilt it to the right, left aileron comes up. If I tilt it to the left, right aileron comes up. So everything is correcting in the proper direction. The motor is spinning in the right direction. It seems nice and smooth. Nice and smooth and linear all the way through the throttle range. All right, and then if we test the fail-safe on it. Okay, so the engine shuts down, the elevons go back into the neutral position, and let's see, and it looks like they are still correcting. Yeah, so that's great. So if I lose contact with it, the motor will shut down and it should have a nice glide down to the ground. So it won't get destroyed. All right, so let's start it back up again. Welcome to OpenTX. Okay, and we're connected again. All right, so this plane is ready for first launch. I'm not sure where the CG is supposed to be on this, but with this 2S LiPo installed in it, I'm just slightly nose heavy if I put my fingers underneath that forward wing spar. So it calls for a 2S 500 milliamp hour LiPo. It doesn't say what weight it is. So if it's slightly, I would rather it be slightly nose heavy on the first launch than slightly tail heavy. That's it for the assembly. It's a wrap on this episode. Stay tuned, and I'll see you next time in the Tinkerz Lab.